All right, seventh graders, we are working on NS3 today, which is rewriting fractions to decimals, decimals to fractions, etc. All right, so first we have a decimal here, 0.15, and we need to write that as a fraction. Okay, so we have 2 decimal places, which means the 5 is in the hundredths place. So we're going to put 15 over 100. We always look at the number farthest to the right, and what place that is in determines what our denominator is. So we have 15 over 100 because the 5 is in the hundredths place. And now we can reduce what goes into 15 and 100. Well, 5 goes into both of those. So we would divide 15 by 5, which is 3. Divide 100 by 5, which is 20. And we get 3 over 20 as our fraction. And we would plug that in, get 3 over 20, and we got it right. Okay, let's try another. We have 0.19. Again, the 9 is in the hundredths place, so that would be 19 over 100. And 19 is a prime number, nothing goes into it but 19 and 1, and 19 doesn't go into 100, so our fraction would just be 19 over 100. Just like that. All right, one more. We have 0.4. 4 is in the tenths place, so we put 4 over 10. And then reduce, 2 goes into 4 and 10, 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 10 5 times, so our answer is 2/5. All right, we have 0.8918, and we have to write that as a fraction. So I go all the way to the right, we have tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s is where the 8 is. That's the place that the 8 is in. So we would have 8918 over 2, 3, 10,000. All right. Then we need to reduce that. So what goes into 8,918? All right, so it looks like 2 goes into both of those because they're both even. So if I divide 8,918 by 2, I get 4459. And if I divide 10,000 by 2, I get 5,000. Now this is an odd number. There are no other factors that are in common between those two numbers, so that's all we would have. It's a big, ugly fraction, but sometimes it turns out that way, which is okay. Good. All right, 12.28. 12 is the whole number. The 8 is in the hundredths place, so it's 28 over 100. Now we can reduce that fraction. We know that actually 4 goes into 28 and 4 goes into 100, so that would give us 7 over 25. So we'd have 12 and 7 25ths would be our final answer. All right, we have 0.7723. The 3 is in the 10 hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths place. That's a 0. I don't think there's anything in common with this number and that number, so it'd just be a big fraction. All right, we are rewriting the fractions as decimals. So remember, to change a fraction into a decimal, we do the top divided by the bottom. So we have 55 over 6. So we're going to do 55 divided by 6. Put our decimal in place. 6 goes into 55. Let's see. 11 times would be 66. So that's too much. 10 times would be 60. Must be 9 times. 9 times 6 is 54. Subtract, we get 1. Bring down a 0. 6 goes into 10 once. 1 times 6 is 6. Subtract, we get 4. Bring down another 0. 6 goes into 40. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 7 is 42. So that would be too much, so it must be 6, which is 36. Subtract, we get 4. Bring down a 0. Looks like we're going to be repeating again, because 6 goes into 46 times, which is 36, and we're just going to get repeating 6s. Okay, it says round to 4 decimal places. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is that last 6 going to do to the 6 before it? Since this is over 5, it's going to round that 6 up to a 7. So our final answer would be 9.166. 7 to 4 decimal places. So we have 9.1667. Get 1/3. Maybe you have this one memorized already, maybe you don't. It's one that you will memorize as you continue through school. We do top number divided by the bottom number. Put our decimal in place. 3 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0. Subtract, we get 1. Bring down a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. And now maybe you can see what's going to start happening. We get 10 again, which makes 3. 3 times 3 is 9. We're going to keep getting repeating 3s. So if I look at the 5th 3, what does that do to the 4th 3? Since 3 is less than 5, it's going to round down. So our answer would just be 0.3333. And 31 divided by 9. Top number divided by the bottom number. Put our decimal in place. 9 goes into 31 3 times evenly, which is 27. Subtract, we get 4. Bring down a 0. 9 goes into 40. Let's see, 9 times 4 is 36. Subtract, we get 4. Bring down a 0. Okay, you can probably see what's going to happen again. We get 40 again, which makes 4. Subtract, we get 40 again. So we're going to have repeating 4s. So what does that 5th 4 do to the one ahead of it? Again, since 4 is less than 5, it's going to round down. So it's just going to stay 3.4444. Good. All right, 7th graders, on this link, we need to order the students from shortest to tallest. So that means we need to convert these in all to the same form. You could put them all in fraction form, but I think it's probably going to be easier to compare them if they're all in decimal form. So the first one, we have 1 2/3. To change that fraction into a decimal, we do long division. So we'll do 2 divided by 3. 3 goes into 2 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0. Subtract, you get 2. Bring down a 0, you get 20. 3 goes into 20 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract, we get 2. We're going to bring down a 0. And we start to see a pattern that's forming. I'm going to get 20 every time. So 3 goes into 20 6 times again. I get 18. Subtract, we get 2. Bring down a 0. And it's 6 again. So 2/3 as a decimal is actually 0.6 repeating. So when we put the 1 with it again, the whole number, we get 1.6 repeating for 1 2/3. 1.68 is already in decimal form. Then we need to change 4/3 to a decimal by doing long division again. So we do 4 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 once. We'll put our decimal in place. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract, we get 1. Bring down a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, we get 1. Bring down the next 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. And now we have a pattern forming again. We're going to get 1.3 repeating for 4/3. Okay? So now we put them in order from smallest to largest. So the number that's closest to 0 is going to be the smallest, which would be 1.3 repeating. So that would be Deandra. The next number would be 1.6 repeating. So that would be Jante. And then the tallest or the biggest number would be Travis at 1.68. And we have them in the correct order. All right, let's try another one. We have 5/4, 132%, and 1.3. We need to order them from least to greatest. So again, I think the easiest way to do this is put them in decimal form. So I'm going to do top number divided by the bottom number to convert 5/4 into a decimal. Put my decimal in place. 4 goes into 5 once. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract, I get 1. Bring down a 0. 4 goes into 10 twice. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract, we get 2. Bring down another 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. We get 0, so 5/4 is 1.25. 132% as a decimal. We just move our decimal place twice to 1.32. Move it to the left twice. And then 1.3 is already a decimal. Okay, so the smallest decimal would be the number closest to 0, which would be 1.25. So that one's actually first. And these both have 2 decimal places. 1.3 only has 1 decimal place. But actually, if I put a 0 behind the 3, now it has 2 decimal places. There's nothing there, there's always a 0. So it'll be 1.30. So 1.30 is smaller than 1.32. So that one would have to go second. 132% is last. We have a story problem here. It says the Reno Raiders are voting on which player should be their captain for the upcoming season. Brody received 1/3 of the votes. Darren received 50% as many as Brody, and James received 3 times as many as Darren. Okay, so if this number line represents the votes, 100% of the votes, Brody received 1/3. So about 1/3, we'll put a B for Brody. Then Darren received 50% as many as Brody. Well, 50% as a decimal would be 0.5. So Darren received half as many as Brody. So if I take Brody's votes and cut them in half, that would be Darren's votes. And then lastly, James received 3 times as many as Darren. So I would take the amount that Darren got, multiply by 1, 2, 3, that would be how many votes that James got. Okay, so if we are putting these in order from least to greatest, Darren received the least, Brody was in the middle, and then James received the most votes. Okay, drawing out a number line and walking through the story problem helped me visualize and see who got the most votes and who got the least votes. There. Okay, match the numbers with the correct label. So again, we're trying to figure out smallest to greatest. 1/4 as a decimal. Hopefully you have that one memorized. Otherwise, you can do some long division. Turns out to be 0.25 for 1/4. This is already a decimal. And then 2/9, you can do 2 divided by 9, which turns out to be 0.2 repeating, or 0.222, and the 2's keep going. Okay? So the smallest would either be the number that's closest to 0. So we're comparing 17, 22, if we look at just 2 decimal places, and then 25. Well, 17 is the smallest one, and the dot that's closest to 0, which would be the smallest, would be C. So 0.17 goes with C. Then the next number in order is 0.22, which is 2/9. The dot that's in the middle is B, so 2/9 goes with B. And then the largest number is 0.25. The farthest dot away from 0 is A, so 0.25 goes with A, which is what we have there. So that would be the order that they go in. You can convert them to decimals and then put the decimals in order from smallest to largest. We are adding and subtracting rational numbers, okay? Again, I would change these all to decimals, and then it's gonna be easiest to add and subtract them. So percents aren't too bad, we just move the decimal twice. So we have 115%, we move the decimal twice, it's 1.15. 1/50, we just do some long division. Move our decimal in place. 50 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 50 is 0. Subtract, we get 1. Bring down a 0. 50 goes into 10, 0 times. 0 times 50 is 0. Subtract, we get 10. Bring down another 0. 50 goes into 100 twice. 2 times 50 is 100. So 1/50th is 0.02. So we're adding 0.02. And then 117.5%. Again, we're going to move the decimal twice. It turns into 1.175. And now we just need to add all those together. Okay. To add those together, I'm going to line up my decimals, and then I can add, erase this a minute. So I have 1.15, 0.02, 1.175. I get 5, 7 plus 2 plus 5 is 14. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 1 makes 2. So I get 2.345. It says enter the answer as an exact decimal or simplified fraction. We get 2.345. Kind of cool how it goes right in order like that. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right, on this one, we have 1 fraction and 1%. I'll convert those to a decimal again. So we'll do the top number divided by the bottom number to get it as a decimal. So 20 goes into 6 0 times. 0 times 20 is 0. Bring down the 6. Bring down another 0. 20 goes into 60 3 times. 3 times 20 is 60. Subtract, we get 0. So 6/20 is negative, or negative 6/20 is negative 0.3. On 150%, we'll move our decimal twice, gives us 1.50. So those signs are unlike, so we will actually subtract those. 1.50 minus 0.3, and we can put a 0 behind the 3. Subtract 0 minus 0 is 0, 5 minus 3 is 2, 1 minus 0 is 1. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 1.5 is bigger and it's positive, so our answer would be a positive 1.20. All right, good.